More than a year after the Ferguson uprisings, with the movement still unfolding, Katrina sat with how she was transformed by the brilliance of frontline organizers and the political reality of how often movement demands ran up against what felt like intractable systems. That tension stayed with her. So she launched Sojourn, committed to working at the intersection of movement and politics to bring both rigor and joy to winning in the now while building power for the long haul.
Congratulations to Katrina and to the entire mighty Sojourn Strategies team for marking a decade of being a crucial research and strategy partner to so many of us in movement space. Thank you for doing your work with such care and rigor and your giant brains, but also your giant hearts.
Right away, Sojourn began bridging the gap between movement power and political action. Partnering with Color of Change, they built a national coalition and movement of organizers, strategists, and legal experts to challenge mass incarceration by electing progressive prosecutors. Through the Black Civic Engagement Fund, they invested where others wouldn't, building Black civic infrastructure across the South, from Hampton Roads, Virginia, to rural North Carolina. By 2018, Sojourn led the Progressive Narrative Project, bringing major political players like MoveOn and SEIU together under an aligned strategy that mobilized millions of voters to flip the U.S. House. In critical moments, Sojourn didn't just bring clarity and strategy. They ensured the right voices were at the table.
I think that Katrina and her team have really been curious about our communities, focusing on research that matters most to us. And in a moment where we really need to reimagine a new world, we need to step into new realities, we need to do what Octavia Butler, create new worlds. I think Sojourn Strategies really lives into that legacy.
When the pandemic hit and others retracted, Sojourn leaned in, expanding its team to meet the crisis. Partnering with the Economic Security Project, they secured stimulus checks for families and communities struggling to survive. Simultaneously, they worked with advocates to pass state-level reforms, from vote by mail to extended early voting, keeping our democracy accessible in a high-stakes year. As the world shifted, Sojourn advised funders on how to keep resources flowing, ensuring grassroots infrastructure didn't just survive the pandemic, but stayed fueled to organize through it. Over the past 5 years, through their work with WDN Action, Sojourn has helped move more than $47 million to the field.
Katrina has helped us in so many ways. Very importantly, during COVID times, making sure that we could get those stimulus checks to as many people that needed it the most, and working to bring in diverse voices, especially the racial justice and civil rights groups, to help push for fairer and better economic policies.
You move at the speed of trust. You take time. You value people's thoughts and ideas, and you draw out the best in us. And I've really appreciated the work that you have done to ensure that donors are movement aligned. That's so incredibly important that we are listening, especially to Black and Brown organizations and leaders.
Core to Sojourn's impact over the past 10 years has been a commitment to strengthening our democracy. In New Mexico and Minnesota, they joined broad coalitions to pass two of the most expansive voting rights bills in decades, securing reforms from automatic voter registration to voter rights restorations for formerly incarcerated people. Driven by the belief that we must move from policy to power, Sojourn worked to translate legislative wins into real-world impact. That's why Katrina co-founded the Voter Justice Project, working with partners to restore voting rights to over 300,000 people across the country. By building a community of justice-impacted-led organizations, they are turning policy wins into political power.
Congrats on 10 years. It's been a great 9 years, I think, since we started working together, Katrina, in these sort of current roles, implementing and then supporting the passage of automatic voter registration and other pro-democracy work all over this country. I don't think I've seen anyone approach it with the intelligence, the grit, the wisdom, and the joy that you have. It's just been so wonderful to collaborate with you and this whole team at Sojourn.
I can't emphasize how wonderful of a mix this team is of policy smarts, political expertise, deep commitment and talent in managing, organizing coalitions, and brilliant research that moves not only our work, but the whole field around. It was genuinely a eye-opening, career-changing moment for me to learn from her what the power was in building people-powered coalitions.
One of Sojourn's greatest contributions to the field is research that disrupts the status quo, refusing to treat marginalized communities as transactional pawns in an electoral game. From their groundbreaking Black values research featured in the New York Times to leadership that elevates belonging and civic homes as the antidote to our growing cynicism crisis, Sojourn has led research that doesn't just sit on the shelf, but is used by organizers to build real power. Research that helped the NAACP recruit 100,000 volunteers in 2024. Research that fueled a narrative strategy to pass Maryland cannabis ballot measure with a 67% landslide. Katrina and the Sojourn team are truth tellers, pushing back on the myth that Black, Latino, and Asian communities are monolithic voting blocks to be taken for granted. From Harvard to South by Southwest, they've elevated rigorous research that centers the values of the communities the world too often ignores.
So Sojourn Strategies, thank you for helping build work that is rigorous, human, and rooted in dignity. Here's to the next decade of amplifying voices and strengthening democracy together.
Katrina and her team have helped anchor us in truth. At Power Interfaith, we have been blessed to partner with Sojourn Strategies on groundbreaking research. This work has done more than produce reports. It has shaped strategy, clarified messaging, strengthened our organizing, and reminded us that Black voters are indeed not a monolith. In moments when narratives about our communities are distorted or weaponized, Sojourn Strategies has insisted on centering Black voices with rigor, integrity, and cultural fluency. Katrina, your leadership represents what is possible when brilliance meets courage, when research serves liberation, and when Black women lead with excellence and vision.
Congratulations to Katrina and to the entire mighty Sojourn Strategies team.
Thank you. 10 years with Sojourn Strategies.
I'm so proud of you. Congratulations.
Congrats on 10 years. Thank you for 10 years.
I'm so excited to celebrate your anniversary with you.
Congratulations to Sojourn Strategy on 10 powerful years.
Congratulations, Sojourn Strategies, and thank you for walking with us.